Hello guys and welcome to our YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. Probably one of the hardest camera names out there. If you're looking for a semi-professional camera, this one is the best bang for buck right now. There's no other camera out there on the market that price range that offers 6K resolution in RAW, ProRes recording, XLR audio inputs, ability to record on SSD drives, Super 35 sensor, bright 5-inch touch display, and all of this in such a small form factor that you can take with you anywhere you go. Recently, a few cameras came out that can also shoot 6K RAW. However, the price tag on those starts from 15,000 going up to 50-60,000. So there's nothing that comes close in the price range to this camera. If you're wondering if you should buy the 6K or the 4K version, I think there's some advantages and disadvantages to both. One myth that I see going around the internet is that the 4K is better at low light than the 6K, and I think that's not true at all. The only reason why the 4K could be better in low light is if you use it together with the speed booster. If you're putting full frame glass on a 4K version with a speed booster, you're getting much more light onto the sensor, but not because it's better in low light, just because you're taking advantage of the speed booster. If you're thinking to buy the 4K version over the 6K version, and then you will buy a speed booster, you need to consider that the speed booster price will bring you closer to the price of the 6K version. But at this point, you need to think what's more important to you, the resolution or the slightly better low light performance with the speed booster. One big advantage about shooting in 6K in low light and then being able to down res it to 4K is that your noise also gets much smaller and much more cinematic looking. The other big advantage of being able to shoot in 6K is that you can up-res it to 8K. And if you upload 8K videos to YouTube, it gives you much higher bitrate. One thing I also like about the Super 35 sensor is that it's the traditional size for most cinema cameras. In the past, I worked a lot with the Super 35 sensor on the Red Scarlet, on the Blackmagic Ursa Mini, also on the Sony FS7s. I already know how it's gonna crop on different lenses. It's really easy to transition from the more professional cinema cameras. As soon as I saw a photo somewhere of the Blackmagic Pocket camera with a plugged-in SSD drive, that's what got my attention. One of the main reasons I bought this camera in the first place was because I was shooting some Fashion Week events in Copenhagen and London. And it's very important in Fashion Week, if you're doing street style, to post the content really fast while it's still relevant. So this is where the SSD comes super handy. If the SSD is attached to your camera right here, I usually just shoot my footage, unplug it from the camera, plug it straight into the laptop, I still leave it in the cage, I do my edit on the SSD, I upload it, and then I plug it back into the camera and continue shooting the next thing. It's not only giving you more storage for less money, but it's giving you incredible performance for video editing. There's almost nothing else on the market with that speed, that performance for video editing, and it's right there on your camera. You don't have to do anything else. You're recording on it, you're editing from it. It's just an all-in-one storage that I absolutely love. The menus on this camera are amazing, and the buttons on the body itself. You can see that it was made with a filmmaker in mind. Unlike some of the other popular cameras like the Sony a7S series and even their cinema line, I think you can reach any setting within the camera within 3 or less clicks, which is amazing. It's super easy to access any features. You can go into slow motion with one button click. You have your ISO, shutter speed, and white balance buttons right here at the top. There are also 3 customizable buttons right here that you can set it to anything that you want. The other huge advantage of buying the Pocket Cinema camera, whether it's the 4K or the 6K, is that you get a free license key for the DaVinci Resolve Studio 16, which costs around 320 euros in Europe right now. I also find that the Blackmagic RAW codec is really nice. It plays much easier on my computer than some of the other formats. It definitely performs better than the previous CD&G files from the Ursa Mini 4.6K. The other thing about this camera that not many people mention is that it has amazing audio recording capabilities. It has 2 audio inputs. One of them is a balanced Mini XLR and the other one is a standard jack input. You can actually monitor and control both channels within the settings. You can also choose to have just one of the inputs recording from an external source and use the camera built-in microphone to get some ambient sound recording. So some negative things about the camera: for some strange reason you cannot shoot in 4K RAW, only at 6K, 5.7K, and then 2.8 or 2.7K, which I usually use for the 120 frames slow motion. You cannot shoot 120 frames in ProRes, it's only in RAW, and it's only in 2.8K. I have to say though, the 2.8K resolution is good enough to upscale it to 4K, and I think for any online use, no one would ever notice it. I think I would use the 2.8K footage up-res to 4K, even for some commercial projects, as long as the ISO wasn't too high. One thing to note is that in ProRes you can only record up to 4K, but I really don't think it's a problem because it doesn't crop the sensor. You're still utilizing the full 6K sensor and then just wrapping it up in a 4K codec. And I'm very happy to shoot in 4K ProRes for travel videos, YouTube, and anything that goes online on social media. It's absolutely more than enough. It's still better than any other codec that comes in consumer cameras, so I can't complain about that. Recently we shot a project in France where my friend couldn't bring his Red Scarlet because he was traveling and he left it in Hong Kong. So we shot it on my Ursa Mini 4.6K and then he got the footage to edit it. So he wrote me the day he got the footage just like, man, the skin tones look amazing on this camera. I didn't do anything, I just threw an S-curve and it looks so nice. It looks a bit like an ARRI. And I have to say, from my use of Red cameras and Sony FS7s, the skin tones in the Blackmagic cameras are super nice, and it's true. If you just throw an S-curve on the log footage, it starts looking really, really nice straight away. One small disadvantage about this camera and the Blackmagic RAW codec is that if you are used to editing in Premiere Pro, unfortunately, natively you cannot edit the Blackmagic RAW files in Premiere Pro. However, this is an easy fix, and the only thing you have to do is go to the Blackmagic website, go to the support tab, and download the Blackmagic RAW 1.5 or above update. This enables Premiere Pro to edit the RAW files without any issues. You still get access to all the RAW settings, so you can still change your white balance, ISO, tint, highlight and shadow recovery. So I don't think it's a big problem because Blackmagic does give you a professional software to edit the files that cost 320 euros. If you choose not to use DaVinci Resolve Studio, get the plugin and use Premiere Pro. The one thing I really love about it is that I keep it rigged up like this, which is quite big. I wouldn't call it a pocket cinema camera. However, I can take everything off, which is nice when I'm traveling. It does pack up really small. I can keep this in my camera bag when I fly, and I can actually pack all the other accessories, the rails, the handle, the V-mount, the plates. I can pack everything else in my suitcase. I take the camera in my camera bag, and it's still really easy to travel with. And I actually don't mind shooting with this kind of setup while I travel because it keeps it much more stable. I also love to have the screen on the top because if you're shooting lower angles or if you're moving around, it's much harder to look at this screen over here. So I really prefer to hold it here just for stability. And then even if I'm shooting up here, it's easier to see the monitor on top than it is to look down here. I see a lot of people get the V-mount plate that comes up here, and for me that doesn't make any sense because I think, yeah, it looks cooler. Probably it looks a little bit more like dynamic and kind of self-contained. However, it doesn't make sense if you have to change the settings on the screen or even see the histogram. You have to look through the side, and it's, for me, the key thing is to be able to shoot quickly, to get into my settings fast. I don't want to be fidgeting around and looking through the side like to see my settings. So I got this V-mount, which is flat. I actually sometimes even take it off like this and put it upside down, so it absolutely doesn't obstruct my view to the screen. I put it right here. Also, I feel like that gives me a little bit better balance and stability, because if you think about it, the monitor and the lens are quite front heavy. So if I extend my battery here, it gives it a much better balance like that. And with the battery attached, I'm almost completely balanced. Also, I can easily see the screen, I can easily control it. If I want to shoot at a higher angle, then I can take over from this screen and just look straight here. I don't have to adjust that too much. So my normal position with this camera is something like this. I'm using the top monitor and I can see everything. I'm also supporting it with my chest, so it's steadier, and this is perfect. Also, a lot of people complain about the tragic battery life of this camera, and I have to say, it's not great, but what can you expect from a camera that records 6K RAW video in this form factor? And for me, it's still an amazing option that I can take off all the rigging, the handles, the cage, the rails, and just have this tiny camera with me with the Canon battery inside that I can go anywhere I want, in airport or on a flight or just in a place where they wouldn't allow a big camera, and I can still get 6K RAW footage with nothing but the camera and a lens. In case you're wondering about any of the parts of my rig build, I will leave the links below so you can go and check it out. I will also be making a tutorial about how I grade the footage, how to get the most out of the Blackmagic RAW. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, like and comment on the video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!